you understand, and it's one of the most phenomenal things that ever could have ever Abba Yahuwah could have ever allowed us to experience, and that is the ability to give birth. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
Very important for us to understand. All right, now, once again, the rabbis derived the verb from rutz, which is to run. When she passed the school of Torah conducted by Shem and Eber, Yaakov ran towards it, struggling to come forth. And when she passed an idolatrous temple, Esau ran towards it. They moved about within her as usual with embryos. In other words, when she was passing by the temple that brought forth the Torah, Yaakov wanted to go. Esau wanted to go. Now you have to understand that's their analogy or hypothesis. Mm-hmm. But they were nice-sized babies moving around in that womb. But the struggle you don't really see until they come out. Yes, you see when he grabs on his heel, but you see the real struggle when they're outside of the birth canal or outside the womb. If it be so, if the pain of pregnancy is so extreme, she inquired whether such great pain was normal. Now you have to understand something. There's a different, there's a pain when a person is pregnant with two babies. There is a pain when you are pregnant with one baby. I heard one older mother say, it is like dying over and over again when you have a child. I know it's painful, but I won't say die. Another person said, it is like pulling your bottom lip to the back of your head. When I heard that one, I was like, take your bottom lip, pull it to the back. You can't get it that far. But you have different people that basically say what the pain feels like. I know in my experience, it is a pain that if you are not mentally, you have to really be ready mentally. Your body is already ready. Your body, the moment conception takes place, your body is already ready before and even after conception takes place. Your body is already ready to handle. Now, the problem that I won't say the problem, but the challenge comes in is when that pain begins to increase, because the more your pelvis expands and opens, it has to hurt in order for it to get to the dilation of 10. And yes, it does hurt. It is a pain that to many is undescribable. And then there's that pain that feels like somebody running over your hand with a couple of trucks. Feels like your feet being broken off. It is just, you have to be the one to experience it, to be able to understand. But I believe, once again, you have to understand that what would be normal versus abnormal. And because she had twins, and depending, it really doesn't tell their size, you're going to experience double, because now her pelvis has to expand wider. But once she gives birth to one, another one is coming right behind it. So yes, you can, that pain could be very excruciating. Are you following me? But not to the point to where it's abnormal. It's the pain that has to be, because it's these are twins. Okay, does that make sense?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. Now, therefore do I live. The literal translation is, why then am I? That is longing for children. Why then is my pain so great, having been told that so much pain was not usual? And this is what they're saying, that she was told that if this is usual, but then you have to understand that the pain is going to be increased because she's carrying what? Twins. Mm-hmm. Because there's a double life in her womb, not just a single. Excuse me, not just single life, a double life. And so this is why the pain would be different. She went to the school of learning of Shem, to the prophets of those young men. And so according to them, when she went to inquire, as many of us have believed that when she went to pray and seek Abba Yahuwah on her own, and he spoke to her. But many of theologians have shown, according to the order that was in place, that she went to the prophet, because remember, Shem was still alive.
Right.
Just like Nimrod was still alive. These people had not deceased. And if you read in the scroll of Yesher, you will see. But here it is. She went to them and inquired, and they prayed. And this is how she was able to get her answer. Are you following? Yeah. Now, somebody would say, well, what about in today's society? Do we have to go to somebody to get our prayers answered? Do we have to go to somebody to get a word from Abba Yahuwah? I will say this. I will say that when Abba Yahuwah desires to get a word to us, he knows how to. Yes, he does. And I believe that if it is something on an individual level, when you read in your writings, you will see it. We know most of the time when we need to straighten up. We don't need a prophetic word for that. Right. Because the moment you open up the writings and you begin to read, if you know you outside of truth, there's conviction coming. If you are not convicted, that means something is wrong, especially if you're doing wrong. Now, if you ain't doing wrong, your conviction shouldn't be there. Right. Condemnation comes when you know you've done it and you walking around and you acting like you haven't done anything. Right. Are you following me? Yes. So it's important that we understand the purpose for the order of things. The prophets were brought forth because the prophets are the mouthpiece of Abba Yahuwah. Yahush was a prophet. That does not minimize him because he was a prophet. Sit down. Don't let me tell you again to sit down. You hear me? Yes. All right. Yahush was a prophet. And so it is important that we understand the prophet. It's the office of a prophet. The office of a prophet is to put back into the people the responsibility, the desire, the awakening of what he or she is supposed to do as a whole. Are y'all following me? Yes. Not like you see in Christianity. And I think that's one of the problems with us, why we sometimes have a hard time accepting the office of a prophet, because we have been so over inundated with false prophets in Christianity that when somebody says they are a prophet, people sit back and say, I wonder if they really are a prophet. I wonder if what they say comes to pass. You have to understand something. We don't move on our own. We only can move when the Abba tells us to move. Right, right. We can only speak when he gives us something to speak. And if he doesn't tell us anything, then we must remain quiet. Right. That's just the bottom line. And you have to understand, whenever a prophet went into a place, everybody was afraid because they said, we're asking, are you here to judge us? What is going on? Right. So it's important that we understand the office of a prophet is not to prophesy houses. It's not to prophesy cars. That's Christianity. So it's important that we understand, whenever Abba Yahuwah opens our mouths and he says, tell my people, woe, you better understand there is something behind that woe. That's right. That's right. Or he says, tell them Shema. That means listen. That means you better drop what you're doing and you better listen, because he has something he wants to say. He's already said what he needs to say. Now, what we have to do is follow the instructions. That's right. That's important. Do we ask for prayer? Absolutely. There's nothing wrong with asking somebody to pray with you or pray for you, because that's the purpose of us as a people. But you are never to become dependent upon anybody. That's right. The only person you're supposed to be dependent upon is Yahuwah. That's right. That's very important for us to understand. Once again, you have to understand the order, and you have to take it out. And basically what we have to do is get that Christianity mindset out. That's right. Because the longer we think like Christians, the more we will refute and we will fight against the order of Abba Yahuwah. It's important that we understand that, and don't think for one moment that the prophets have been done away with. Because remember, he said in Yahuwah, I think it is 5 and 17 and 18, he said, think not that I've come to do away with the prophets, with the instructions of the prophets. So understand, he did not come to do away with it. Are you following me? Yes. So it's very important that we understand he didn't come to do away with them, but they were being killed because they were doing what? They were bringing forth correction, and people don't like to be corrected. That's right. And that's just the bottom line. But it's important that we understand, once again, what was going on. So she went to the prophet so that he could speak over her and he could instruct her. That's right. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
Very important. All right. Now, to inquire of Yahuwah, that he might tell her how it would end, or to seek him in prayer. And so this is important that we understand that she went to find out what was going on. In other words, she humbled herself, and she didn't go with that mentality. Can't nobody tell me nothing. I can do this on my own. I don't need anybody. Right. But she understood order, and she understood the proper channels to go through. Right. Chain of command. Many times we don't want to hear that. Once again, because Christianity, many of us have been over-inundated with the errors of Christianity. And so now when we come in the truth and somebody says, yo, but there are prophets in the land. Ain't no prophets in the land. Ain't this in the land? Don't say what Yahuwah doesn't have in the land. Right. Because if you start saying there are no prophets, then you need to say that we're not the true people. Right. Because even in Babylon, they had prophets. Are y'all following me? Yes. So it's important that we understand and never ever get to a point to where you feel that you don't have to listen, because you don't know the very word that is spoken or instructions given could be the very thing that saves your life. This is very important. So she went to inquire of the apple, and Yahuwah said unto her, through a prophet, or through Abraham, who was still alive and did not die until her sons were 15 years old. So there was that chain of command. Now somebody would say, well, is it just men? Absolutely not. Right. Because even when Yahushua was born, Anna the prophetess was still in the temple. And she was even able to hold him. So it's important that we understand that it was not just men that were prophets, but at that time, those were the prophets that she dealt with. It was either Abraham or it was Shem. Are y'all following me? Yes. Excuse me. But either way, order was still maintained. That's important for us to understand. Yes. Are you hearing me? Yes. Yes. Nations, your pain is the greater because you are pregnant with twins. They are destined to found two nations with opposing ideas. They quarreled, it says, while in the womb. And now I can agree, once again, when you have babies in the womb, especially two, they're fighting for space. They're fighting for who's going to be first. They're fighting for it. And so you have to understand, if you ever speak with a person, and twins run in my family, in my mishpachah, and I've talked to them, and they can tell you some stories, and they tell you that want to be on the run, moving while the other's doing it. And you start thinking, how is that so? We ain't but this big. But you have to understand the things that babies can do inside of a womb, and the way they can maneuver, and the way they can flip, and the things they are able to do. And so with that being said, it's important that we understand her pain was not abnormal. It was normal for that which was taking place in her life. Are y'all following me? Yes. Yes. Very important for us to understand. And they had opposing ideas. So once again, you can also see this, as I said, you don't see the real struggle until, until they are outside of the womb. But she experiences the tug of war while they're in there. Who's going to be first? Right. Okay. All right. Shall be separated from thy bowels. From thy very bowels they shall part, one to wickedness, to integrity. Now you have to understand, the question is, when they were born, were they opposite, or was it when they got older that their ideas began to change? Something for us to think about. Was it that when they got older, or while they were still babies? Because most twins, whether they are fraternal twins, or what is the other ones? Fraternal or identical. Now, one thing about it, if you've ever seen twins, they just as close as they want to be. But these babies, when they were born with a uniqueness about them that made them separate. And I'm sure they probably, because they saw the prophecy that was on their lives, that they would be different. And so we can kind of see these things, and it is so. Shall be stronger than the other people. They will never be both strong at the same time. When one falls, the other will rise. And so it's important that we understand once again that what is being spoken and that what is being already foretold. So when many people look at Esau and we look in and many say, well, you know, he had a choice. He actually didn't have a choice because he was going to be who he was because Yahuwah had already saw his character in the womb. He already saw the type of individual he was going to be. It wasn't that Yahuwah said, okay, I'm going to choose Yaakov and I'm going to make Esau pay. No, he already saw their character while they were developing. He already saw that one was going to be different than the other. And that one was going to adhere and the other was not. The other was going to forbear. So he already saw this. Twins. The Hebrew word is spelt defectively. But in the case of Tamar, it is written in full. The reason is that both children of the latter were righteous, but here one was wicked. Hence, these twins were, so to say, defective. Now, you have to understand the reason why they would say defective. Because you got two people that look alike. One is going to be different than the other. But they are identical. Or they are twins. Are you following me? And so, once again, this is where we come to see this. Now, many people would say, once again, this is where the theory and people can theorize all day long, but I will continue to say that the Edomites are not the Caucasians. They are not. They do not fit the description. Because to say that they are, that the Caucasians or the Edomites would say that they are our brothers. And they are not. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
That's the truth. Now, once again, you can look at them trying to fake the funk. You see them growing their beards and trying to grow their hair. But when it's all said and done, I believe that's just a distraction. No matter what they do, yes, they did all kind of stuff to our people, and they were cruel and they were harsh, but they are not the Edomites.
Right.
They are not. And it's important that we establish that and we don't continue to promote that, because when you promote that, once again, you got to remember the place you exalt them to. And we're not trying to exalt them in a position that's not rightfully theirs. But this says that they were defective. And the reason they were defective, once again, is because one was evil while the other was upright. And this is important for us to understand. Are you following me?
Yes.
All right. Ruddy. A portent that he was, that would shed blood. Ruddy. A portent that he would shed blood. In other words, saying the reason why he was ruddy was because it was almost like prophetic that he would be covered in blood because of the lifestyle that he would grow and develop into. Esau, which means completely formed. From Asa, he made. He was developed with hair like a child several years old. So that means when he was born, he already had a full head of hair. You know how some of these babies that are so gorgeous, you see them when they're born and they have a head full of hair. Every last one of my babies had hair. None of my babies were bald headed. Every last one of them had all that hair. Doctors be like, "Oh, look at all that hair," and all that kind of crazy stuff. But anywho, but they had a lot of hair, or he had a lot of hair. Are you hearing me? Yes. Which showed also could show his development. Are you hearing me?
Yes.
Could show once again. His development even at birth, the hair, the eyebrows, because he was hairy, the eyelashes, all of those actually show maturity. Because most of the time when babies are born, some of them are born with eyelashes, eyebrows, and I'm talking about a head full of hair. And the arms and legs be so hairy, they be really, really hairy. Are you following me?
Yes.
They do, because that's just some. It's almost like that. That's a part of development. Because remember, most of the time when babies are born, and some babies with a lot of hair, it takes a couple of days for their eyebrows to come in and for their eyelashes to come in. But he was born with all of these. Are you following me?
Yes.
Backwards and forward. Anyway, all right. His hand had held on Esau's heel. According to a midrash, he was rightly trying to prevent Esau from issuing first because he, Yaakov, had been conceived first. Heel. A sign that his kingdom would scarcely come to an end before Yaakov would arise and take it from him. His name was called Yaakov. Literally, he called his name Yaakov. That is, Yahuwah gave him the name, saying, "You have named your firstborn. I will name my firstborn." Now, once again, let's look at this. This is once again where you can look at Rashi. Because, when we say that Yasharal is Yahuwah's firstborn, and it does say in the writings that he is, or that we are the children of Yahuwah. You must understand this should never ever come in to try to take the place in the writing about the Mashiach. Right. Yes. Many times we take other things to tie into that, to establish that foundation or that theory, that now when it says that he is the son or his firstborn son, that now whenever we read in any place in the writings, that means that this is speaking of Yaakov. Am I making sense? Mm-hmm. So this is important for us to understand once again in the naming, and Yahuwah brought him forth because through him we would be Yasharal. Are you hearing me?
Yes.
His people, his children. So it's important that we understand that. Are y'all following me?
Yes. Yes.
80 years old. Now, once again, I'm just going to read this. She was, and this is what once again, this is what the rabbi said. She was 3 years old when Isaac married her, and he was 40. Then 10 years later, before she was capable of bearing another 10, during which she was childless. So, if he married her at 40 and she was 3 years old. Now, once again, the reason I want to bring this out is because you have to understand something. Let's go back to the creation, the story of creation. When he created Hawa, she was a full-grown woman. Full grown, able to meet his needs, able to match him, because she was what? His companion. You're going to tell me that you would say that Yahuwah would put a 3-year-old with a 40-year-old man? It makes no sense. But once again, when these things are put in place, just because man says it, now automatically, because it's in the book, we feel like it's right, that it's not right. And nobody will ever be able to convince me that Isaac married a 3-year-old being 40. And by the time she had her child, he was 60-something, and she was only what? 20-some years old. 3 years old. Once again, I don't believe that. No. Right, no. It's impossible. And not only that, you have to understand, this is how you know when the interpretations, now walk with me, don't shoot me down, when the interpretations have been hijacked. Right. When they would take that and they would put that in there and say that a 40-year-old man would desire a 3-year-old child, and he would sleep with her, and then when she gets of age, bring forth. Now, let me show y'all something, and don't take me wrong, and like I said, I'm not trying to be graphic, and I'm not trying to be vulgar, but a 40-year-old man sleeping with a 3-year-old, he would have damaged her insides where she would have never been able to give birth. And you're going to tell me that Yahuwah would allow him to mess her insides up, then turn around and baruch her to bring forth children? No. That's not so. Right. That's not so. And like I said, I read these and I bring it out because I know some of y'all, just like I've heard, this is not the first time I've heard this, have heard this before. But I want to bring clarity and show you this is not of Yahuwah.
Right.
And it doesn't matter if it's found in the book. It doesn't matter if 50 billion rabbis and sages come up and say it's valid. It's a lie. Because when we go back to creation, those being the example and being the epitome of relationship, or supposed to be, once again, we see what happened when sin entered there. That's when relationship went to hell. I'm sorry, it just did. It just went to hell. But nowhere does he endorse grown men taking babies to be their issues. That's not so. Are you following me?
Yes.
You see that being practiced in other religions and other cultures. And over, I think it's in India, where you see a little girl we saw, she just as pretty, she wanted to be, had her face all made up. And y'all, I promise you, she wasn't no taller than a duck. And she was sitting over there cooking, had her little jewelry on, had that stove. They trained them early how to cook. And she was cooking and she was doing, y'all, and she could barely write. But some sick man would turn around and want to marry a 3-year-old. He got issues. What is appealing to you of a baby being appealing to you? That's not a woman, that's a baby. And once again, you have to understand the medical problems and the medical issues that would have followed that. She would have been destroyed on the inside. And so you mean to tell me she would have to suffer pain for months, even years? And you think a woman gets older and then she's going to want to stay with a man? No. Come on now. Let's elevate our thinking, and let's think more of our Abba. Let's think more of our Abba. That's not right. That is not right. And I don't care how many people agree with it. That is wrong. That is wrong. So it's important for us to understand, once again, these things and understand what is taking place. Now, the boys grew. When they were small, there were no marked difference between them. But when they reached 13, they showed their varying dispositions. Yaakov frequented the house of study, Esau the idolatrous temples. Now, once again, this is based upon assumption. Why am I saying that? Because remember, the rabbis are the ones that put this in place. For all we know, once again, if you look at the lifestyle of Esau, and the more we read, we're going to see Esau stayed what? He stayed out in the woods. He was always hunting. He was always out there doing these things. So I would be inclined to believe that the reason his heart wasn't towards Abba Yahuwah is because he constantly stayed away from that which would turn his heart to him. It's just like us. You not know when you don't study the Torah, when you don't study the writings, and you don't pray and you don't build a relationship, you will find yourself on the outside looking in because you won't find a reason. You'll be wondering, why I gotta do this? Let me tell you something. The enemy is real. The devil is real. Don't ever underestimate him. And he's always waiting on the sideline to try to trip you up. Oh, yes. He's always waiting for us to be vulnerable, always waiting for that weak moment to where he can wait till you get close to the sideline and then punch you in the side of the head. Because he never does anything fair. Don't ever think he's going to wait for you to get strong. He always waits till you are at your weakest and where you are most vulnerable. That's what he does. And so what does he do? He waits and he prowls and he pries and he waits and he lurks and he does just like a lion that preys on the weak, the weaker animal, the weaker vessel. Right. Are you following me? Yeah. And that's not talking about a woman, because you have men that are weak. Are you hearing me? Gender has nothing to do with strength. It has everything to do with your relationship and your desire to walk in truth. Right. And so here it is. I believe that his desire daily was sifted and taken away from him. Why? Because he found more pleasure killing and hunting than he did being in the presence of Abba Yahuwah. He found it more exciting to hunt than to sit and learn the ways of Torah like many people do today. They don't want to sit. You know, we be just like how they said them rainy day folk. You know, the rainy day Christians. There was a song that I think it was Philip Bailey used to sing, "Rainy Day Christians." And them the ones that they got that wishy-washy mentality. We don't want to be wishy-washy when it comes to the things of Abba Yahuwah. We want to stick and stay. We want to remain. You got to be like that boxer. You got to be like Creed. When you go into that ring, you might be broke all up. But no, put me in, coach. I'm not about to quit the fight. I might have some broken ribs. I might be closed a little bit. My mouth might be swollen. I might look a mess. But I ain't coming out this ring. Not till the fight is over with. Don't count me out and don't put me out. Because I'm not going to forfeit. This is the way we have to be. When the pressure gets turned up, get harder. It doesn't mean make your heart harder. It just says make your skin tougher. How do I make my skin tougher? Read. Read. And sometimes I'm telling you, you can read it and you may forget most of what you read. But the bottom line is go back and read it again. Yes. Keep putting it in your spiritual bank. Keep reading it because I promise you when you need it, it will be there and it'll come back up. It is important that we understand that. Because if we don't, once again, we will find ourselves saying, throw in the towel. No, I'll fight another time. I can't fight this. No, I'm a mess. You got to understand, once again, when you think you're out, that's when Yahuwah will count us in. Don't let the enemy count you out. That's right. I refuse to be counted out. Are y'all following me? Yes. Very important. Let's understand that. Now, listen what it says. A cunning hunter. A man understanding how to deceive, literally ensnare his Abba with his mouth, asking him how tithes were to be taken of salt and straw, so that his father thought him to be very pious. And he was a cunning hunter. A man of the field, a hunter, a man skilled in field work, a quiet man, a man of integrity, his heart and lips speaking the same language. Tents. The tent schools of Shem and Eber, the tent of the shepherd and the tent of the meditation, where he learned to know his master. Once again, you have to learn. We are learning Abba Yahuwah. We're learning about him. We haven't learned him. We are still learning. We are all still in school. There are just some things that he gives to some of us differently than he gives to others. And so it is important that we understand handling the writings, receiving the writings are two different things. Because you want to be able to receive the writings. Are y'all following me? Yes. Everybody is not a handler of the writings. But everybody is one to receive of the writings, the instructions. Yes. And this is important. Why? Because this is how we get our marching orders for the day or for the young. So it's important that we understand we've got to learn. And they sat there and they learned. And they learned. And to many, where it seems redundant, why they go back over the same stuff? They go back over the same Torah portions. Why? Because this is our tent of teaching and our tent of meditation. Yes. So that we will know, because you have to understand, we're coming out of a lifestyle that brainwashed us, that told us the only thing that was right was Jesus Christ and him crucified. Yes. That's all we knew. And that God was the Savior. And we just went along with it. You know how many years of indoctrination many of us stayed and were indoctrinated? Many. So it takes more than a year or two to come out of that. That's right. It takes a renewing. It takes a washing. It takes a sitting and a listening to be rejuvenated. That's right. That's right. And to be vived. Not revived, vived. Because to be revived means we were already there. We were not there. Right. We are just now getting into it now. So we are being awakened and we are being taught how to live him, how to live for him and how to please him. And it is so. Now, verse 28, it says, he did eat of his venison, Literally, there was game in his mouth. The literal meaning is as the words imply. The Midrash comments there was ensnaring in and Esau, mouth. He deceived his father. And it says, look at the previous verse. So in verse 27, when you look at it, it says, and the boys grew, and Esau was a cunning hunter, a man of the field, and Yaakov was a quiet man dwelling in tents. In other words, once again, you see where the parting comes in. He was cunning. He knew how to get out. Okay, well, Pop, you know you like to eat. I gotta go hunt early. I gotta go do this early. Because if I don't, I won't get it. Okay, but I'll be back. Oh man, I missed it. I'm sorry, I missed the Torah class. I know I should have been there, but you just don't know. The flesh is weak, but the ruach is willing. Y'all know the excuses we make. And then once again, and Yaakov is sitting there. But every yom that Esau makes an excuse, and he constantly puts something there for his Abba to accept it, he's getting further, and he's getting further, and he's getting further and further away, to where now he's so far out there, he doesn't care. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
This is why we have to be careful how we stand, lest we fall.
Right.
We have to be careful. And I've learned you got to be careful what you put in your ruach. Mm-hmm. You must be careful with that. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
Very important. All right. Let's finish reading. Start at verse 20. I'm about to say verse. Yeah, start at 29, and we'll read all the way into chapter 26. 8 verses for me, please.
Verse 29. Once when Yaakov was cooking a stew, Esau came in from the field exhausted. He said to Yaakov, let me eat some of that red stuff because I'm exhausted. That is why he was also named Edom. Yaakov replied, first, sell me your birthright. Verse 32. Look, said Esau, I'm about to die, so what great is a birthright to me? Mm-hmm. Yaakov said, swear to me first. So he swore to Yaakov and sold his birthright to him. Then Yaakov gave bread and lentil stew to Esau. He ate, drank, got up, and went away. So Esau despised his birthright. Chapter 26, verse 1. There was another famine in the land in addition to the one that had occurred in Abraham's time. And Yasai went to Abimelech, king of the Plishtim at Gerar. Yahuwah appeared to him and said, do not go down to Mitzrayim. Live in the land that I tell you about. Stay in this land as a foreigner, and I will be with you and Baruch you. For I will give all these lands to you and your offspring, and I will confirm the oath that I swore to your Abba Abraham. I will make your offspring as numerous as the stars of the sky. I will give your offspring all these lands, and all the nations of the earth will be Baruch by your offspring. And it is so.
And it is so. All right, let's look at this verse 29. And it says, now Yaakov cooked the stew, and Esau came in from the field, and he was famished. Now, you have to understand why he was famished. When you read in the scroll of Yasher, you find that he encountered Nimrod. Mm-hmm. And when he fought Nimrod, he wounded him, but he killed his crew, you could say. Mm-hmm. He killed all of those. But him and Nimrod tussled. And he was tired. You can imagine, probably scuffed up. Right. And Nimrod was wounded. He didn't kill him, but he wounded him. Now you have to understand, this is his great uncle he's fighting with. He's fighting with him. Mm-hmm. And so he gets in. Now mind you, you have to ask the question, was it custom for Yaakov to cook? Right. Or was it this time that he realized, hey, he late. When he come in, he ain't gonna want to cook. So he saw it as an opportunity, but you have to understand, and this is my reasoning, if I may put this in there. And like I say, this is my interpretation. Is that when he saw everything he was doing, because when you look at it, it says that he was, supplanted him. In other words, that everybody wants to say that Yaakov tricked him. Yaakov didn't trick him. Right. He just played on him not wanting what he wanted. Because you have to understand, he's sitting and learning not just about Abba Yahuwah, but he's learning about his life. He's learning about what belongs to him. He's learning what is important to life. He's learning about how to exist, and not just exist, but to have. He's learning about what is his. Right. And the whole time Esau is missing, because when he looks over, the seat is empty. So he doesn't care about his inheritance. Right. He doesn't care about any of that. You have to understand, inheritance means money, means collateral, and it means prosperity. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
And so he didn't care about this. And so you have to understand, looking at the life, he's probably thinking every time he go out there, he coming back, and he come back worse than he did. We got to get a little handle on this, because what if he get out there and do something stupid? Right. Like give it away? Because he's not here learning about it. So if he's not learning about it, how can we be so sure, right, excuse me, that when it's time for him to get it, that he's not going to want it? And I'm sure that they probably talked about these things in private. Well, what would you do if you had it? Really, what? I mean, to me, it ain't nothing. You know, I go and hunt and do whatever I got to do. And Yaakov was thinking, but do you realize? Because you're not there. And probably asked him, are you coming to class? No, I ain't going. I got to go out and hunt again. You know, I got to keep the house. I got to keep food in the cabinets. Are you following me?
Yes.
I got to keep money in my pocket. So you can imagine the different things, like I say, just kind of going on and being spoken. And so here it is, looking at the conversation, he cooks and he's famished. And Esau said to Yaakov, please feed me with that same red stew, for I'm famished. Therefore his name was called Edom. Now it was called Edom because he did what? Ate the red stew. Right. Because he ate the red stew. This is why he was called this. Now, listen what this says. What was going on? He was faint after committing bloodshed, tired, hungry, and he was thirsty. He was thirsty because you out there fighting. Anybody ever been in a situation where you didn't wrestle and you kind of tug of war and kind of tussle with a couple of folk? When you get in, you hungry. Right. You can eat anything that's there, and then thirsty, your mouth be all dry. That's when you had a cotton mouth, like you've been sucking on cotton balls. Yes. You're thirsty, you're hungry, but you have to understand what we look at as being irrational. It was rational to him. Why? Because he hadn't set to learn about what was his, so it didn't matter. You ever know when people go to the reading of the will, and most of the time, unless people have been around to know certain things, people say, I ain't going because I know they ain't leave me nothing. So they don't go. I ain't going. What I'm going to go for? I'm not going to go because I know they didn't leave me anything, so why should I go? Right. So you have to see the digression. And while he was digressing, Esau was checking it out and saying, he don't want this. And if he don't want it, I better get in line to get it. Are y'all following me? And because he knew what type of person he was, he just had to use some strategy. But nowhere does it say he made him do anything. Right. Because he could have come in and got something to eat on his own. Are y'all following me? True. But he did not. Now, when you look at it again and look at it, verse 29. Now, let me read to you how it says in here. And it says, and verse 29, it said, and Yaakov, wait, I want to get ahead of myself. Yeah. All right, 29. 30, let's look at 30. Some of this red pottage. When a man is urgent, he repeats himself. Hence this red pottage meant give it to me quickly. It was a pottage of lentils. That day Abraham had died, that he might not see his grandson enter upon a career of wickedness. Had he lived to see it, he would not have enjoyed the great old age promised to him by Yahuwah. Therefore Yahuwah took him away from the world 5 years before his time. For he lived 5 years less than his son Isaac. Yaakov had prepared his pottage of lentils for the morning's meal. for the mourners, I'm sorry, mourners' meal. So in other words, this was for those that were mourning.
Right, right.
And why lentils? Because as lentils are round and roll, so does mourning roll from one person to another. That is, sooner or later, it comes to all. Another reason is, as lentils have no opening, so must a mourner not open his mouth to talk on any matters, save those connected with his mourning. So once again, you kind of see a whole lot of stuff that we wouldn't have seen or that we had not seen before. Mm-hmm. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
And so you kind of see here, and this is why when you read it in this one, it says in verse 28, excuse me, he said, and he said, and Isaac gave, and Yaakov sowed pottage, and Esau came in from the field, and he was faint. So Esau said, Yaakov, let me swallow, I pray thee, some of this red pottage, for I am faint. Therefore was his name called Edom. That is red. Almost like slang. He came in there, with the slang, but he came in there. Why? Because he was hungry, because he had been fighting.
Right.
And so it was just that Yaakov knew how basically to get him. But at the same time, let us remove the word tricked.
Right. Because
he didn't trick him. Mm-hmm. He didn't trick him. Many people said he was out there because he had a blood disease. This is the church interpretation. He had a blood disease and he was out there in the sun and he got faint. And this is why it was the way it was. Anything to take it away from its natural interpretation or its cultural background. And so we have to understand what was going on. And so he wanted to eat. But you remember, he had removed himself from everything that was going on in the bed. Right. This is why we cannot remove ourselves away from truth. We cannot remove ourselves away from the family or the mishpachah of Yasharal. Okay. Because when we move ourselves away, we miss stuff. Okay. And then we come in, and when we come in, we're trying to grab something, and then if we lose something, then we feel like somebody's taking something away from us. No, you got to look at the same situation, because he wasn't around, and I'm inclined to believe that he was always out there in the wilderness, and he was always hunting. There were a lot of things that he just didn't see because he didn't care. Right. It wasn't, how people say, that's just not for me. That's just not what I want. No, the reason it's not for you is because you never gave it a chance to be for you. Right. Does that make sense? Yes. Very important for us to understand that. Now, Edom, he was ruddy, Adam, and demanded red food, for the sake of which he sold his birthright. Thus, Edom was a term of contempt. Was a word as imperative. Be thou red like the pottage thou swallowest. So once again, he didn't become that until after he ate the pottage that was red. Okay. So once again, the connection. Now, verse 31, first literally, as the yam is clear, so make thou a clear sale of thy birthright, to leave no room for subsequent dispute. Thy birthright, the portion of our father's inheritance, which would be yours as the firstborn. The right to perform the sacrificial service, which was normally done by the firstborn. As your time is wholly occupied with hunting that you are tired and will have no thought for Yahuwah's service, sell that privilege to me. So we see more and more as it opens up to us what was being sold. In other words, he sold him the right to do all the rest of this. And then you have to understand, with that comes the benefits. Mm-hmm. Are you understanding me? You yes. Step up in the office, the benefits come with it. And this is what he was missing. Are y'all following me? Yes. All right, now listen. Excuse me. I am at the point to die. Literally, I am going to die. In any event, the firstborn has but a feeble hold upon the privilege of performing the sacrificial service, because it will be transferred one yom to the Levites. Moreover, many breaches of the regulations governing the service are punishable by death, so that I am going to die through this privilege. My occupation as a hunter is dangerous, and I may die any yom. What interest then have I in my Abba's heritage? I am at the point of death through weariness. So he goes out basically with this discourse, and he's basically making excuses why right then and there it's not for him. Doesn't that sound familiar today to people? That people will say,
yes, it does. Because
they sell themselves, they sell what is theirs because they don't want to walk in it.
Right.
Now listen what he says, verse 33. Yeah, he sold his birthright unto Yaakov for an unstated price. The giving of the pottage was merely a symbolic action to ratify the transaction, but it was not the actual price of the birthright. Despised his birthright. Thus, Scripture attests his wickedness, that the privilege of Yahuwah's service was of no value to him, as he regretted his action later, complaining that Yaakov had taken his birthright. Scripture records that at this stage it was of no value in his eyes. So once again, now when you want the substance, this is where you want to complain and say you were tricked. No, we're not tricked. Many a times it is because we do not value what we have. Very important. Let us please stay on. It's be aware.
Yes.
Be aware and be sensitive, because the enemy wants us to forfeit and wants us to get rid of what is ours.
Mm-hmm.
And many times people say, but I would never sell it, but we don't really fully invest in it. We don't really fully invest the time in it. You know, the times that we have, and I'm not just saying my class, because I've said it before, anybody that has ever listened to my classes and that has followed me, we've been doing this now for about, I'm saying we've been on the air now for about, what, 5 years now? Total, excuse me, about 6, almost 7 years, we've been walking in truth. The first 2 years, we were not online. But the 5 years we were, and I always encourage you, if you're not going to attend my class, attend somebody's class, but be committed, be counted for, of being a part of something greater than ourselves.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So we don't find ourselves forfeiting or selling what is ours.
That's right.
It's time. Yes, it is. But it's a time of resting. But it's also a time that we learn.
Right.
And let me tell you something. The only thing you work is your mind.
Right.
And nowhere did he say don't work your mind. We just are not to work our bodies. Are y'all hearing me? Yes. All right. Let's look at chapter 26. Yeah. You read all the way to verse what? 5. All right. Isaac went unto Abimelech. From verse 2, it appears that his purpose was to request permission to leave for Mitzrayim. He might have gone to see whether he could make special arrangements with Abimelech, which would avert the necessity of his going to Mitzrayim. When you look at verse 1, and there was a famine in the land, beside the first famine that was in the days of Abraham. And Isaac went unto Abimelech, king of the Philistines, unto Gerar. So once again, just showing why he would have gone there. You already trying to make things happen. Abimelech, either this was the same king as in the time of Abraham, or possibly Abimelech was a general name for all kings of the Philistines, as we find one of the name in the Yamim of Dawood. Verse 2, go not down into Mitzrayim. You were consecrated as a sacrifice to Yahuwah and must therefore not leave the Kadesh land. And in other words, don't go there. Don't go. And this is why it's important that we, whenever we're going to make a decision that's going to cost us something, I believe it's important that you pray and that you seek the advice of one that is mature and that is walking in truth, that you trust. Mm-hmm. And not just make a decision just to do it because you say, well, I'm grown and I just feel I need to do that. There are times that we really need to consort one another, especially when it has something to do with our livelihood and possibly the changing up of our livelihood and our lifestyle. And it is so.
And it is so.
Dwell in the land. Set up your shepherd's tent here, and do not fear for the lack of pasture. In other words, he said, don't go there. Don't do that, because you're going to make it. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
We're going to make it. Verse 3, I will establish the oath. This is not a confirmation of the oath, which Isaac did not need, but a fresh oath with him, so that it was made directly and separately with each of the patriarchs. By remaining in the country, you will take possession of it, to be able to transmit it to your children. And thus will my oath be confirmed. So he was telling them, no, you don't leave. The reason you're here is because of that which took place before you got here. Are you following?
Yes.
Baruch themselves. A man will baruch his children by saying to them, may your seed be like Isaac. Verse 4. Once again, and he said, and I will multiply thy seed as the stars of Shemayim, and will give unto thy seed all these lands, and by thy seed shall all the nations of the earth baruch themselves. Very important. Now, let's look at it over here in the Abrahamic covenant verse. It says, and I will make your descendants multiply as the stars of the Shemayim. Now look, listen what it says. There's a difference here. Now in verse 4, and it says, and I will multiply thy seed as the stars of Shemayim, and will give unto thy seed all these lands, and by thy seed shall all the nations of the earth baruch themselves. Now over here, let's listen at what it says. And I will make your descendants multiply as the stars of the Shemayim, and I will give to your descendants all these lands, and in your descendants all the nations of the earth shall be baruch. Now I want to show you two things here. And I will make your descendants multiply as the stars, and I will make your descendants multiply. So when you start talking about multiplication, the first thing comes to mind is what? Polygamy.
Right.
Because remember, let's look at what it says. And I will make your descendants multiply. How will he make our descendants multiply? Through marriage. Are you following me?
Yes.
Through birth. So the first thing we put in this, it has to substantiate and it has to support polygamy. No, it doesn't. It depends on the interpretation of where you're reading it from. Does that make sense? Did y'all hear what I read, right?
Yes. Yes.
All right, now let's look at what this says, and shall be baruch. Same promise passed down to Isaac from Abraham. He's telling him the same thing. Are you following me?
Yes.
Very important for us to see this. All right. And so, but when it says baruch themselves, a man will baruch his children by saying to them, may your seed be like Isaac's. Now over here it says it's referring to the same promise passed down to Isaac from Abraham. So you see the different renderings.
Mm-hmm.
It's important that we understand that too. Hearkened to my voice when I tried him. Because that Abraham hearkened to my voice and kept my charge, my commandments, my statutes and my laws. Now, once again, this is the foundation when he said he hearkened to his voice. Kept my charge. This refers to additions to the laws, serving as a fence to them. That is, the extensions to the forbidden decrees of many may not owe to the degrees that were given. A man may not marry his mother. Excuse me. The extension forbids his mother's mother. So once again, it's almost like when you see the, what is it? Is it 300? No, not 300. It's the 615, right? Or 613. 613 extra commands. Now, are you following me? This is where they draw that from, because when it says he kept my charge, and it says this is referring or refers to additions to the laws. Now, once again, this is what the interpretation says, but let's look at what the writing says. It says, because that Abraham hearkened to my voice and kept my charge, my commandments, listen to this, my statutes and my laws. It didn't add anything else, did it? Mm-hmm. Let's look over here in the Abrahamic covenant. Once again, it's important that we understand when there are things that we are to take at face value and not add or take away. Because Abraham obeyed my voice and guarded my ordinances, my commandments, my statutes, and my Torah. It didn't say any added thing, did it? It said because he obeyed these, verse 6 comes and tells us. Now, Abraham was a great Torah keeper, and Yahuwah gave witness testimony on behalf of Abraham keeping his Torah teachings. It depends on the interpretation of what you're going to get when you read it. And this is why it is important. Are y'all following me? Yes. That when we read or we hear something, that not only do we read it and pray about it, but we also ask somebody, hey, have you heard this? So which one is valid? Are y'all following me?
Yes.
Which one should we use as a platform? The one that sticks with what is stated. Because it didn't say he added anything. Are you hearing me? Yes. In Devarim chapter 5, right? Starting with verse 6 all the way to 22. 21 says, and he what? Added what? No more. So if he didn't add anymore, it was not given to us to do what? Add anymore. Or expand it. No, we don't have to expand it. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
Very important for us to understand that. All right. We read to verse 5. All right. My commandments, such as could be enacted even if they were not written in the Torah, the prohibition of theft and murder. In other words, even if these things were not, there are certain things that are in it, but we know this is the commandment. Are you hearing me?
Yes.
My statutes, the prohibition of swine flesh, which would not naturally be arrived at by reasoning and are thus, as it were, a royal decree. They say, we don't eat no swine. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
So it's important, once again, for us to understand there were certain things that were understood and these were put in place. Mm-hmm. All right. My laws, the plural includes the oral law. Now, once again, let's look at who's saying this. Observe that this interpretation implies that Abraham fulfilled all the law of the Torah even before they were revealed as Sinai, arriving at a knowledge of them through inspiration. It is difficult then to understand how Yaakov married two sisters and set up a pillar to Yahuwah, both of which the Mosaic law forbids. He suggests that before the Torah was revealed, these laws may have been regarded as binding only in the Kadesh land. Whereas Yaakov committed his act beyond its boundary. This is the following plain meaning of the verse. Kept my charge. Abraham believed in me as the only power and sought to teach this belief to others. My commandments includes all that Yahuwah had commanded him: to leave his home, sacrifice his son, expel Hagar. My statutes to be merciful and to do justice and upright, and command his children to do likewise. My laws, such as circumcision, circumcision was one of the main things that the men had to undergo, whether young or old. And when Abraham did it, remember, Abraham circumcised Ishmael at 13, and he was in his hundreds when he did it, and all the men in his house had to be circumcised. So we're talking about grown men. It didn't matter if you were in the house, whether you 12, 15, 1500, you got circumcised if you were a man and were not circumcised. So he upheld the principle, and he upheld the commandments. So that's important for us to understand why we need to go into detail and understand everything in great length. Why? Because this is our lifestyle. This is our culture. And if we miss it, then guess what? We miss our way of life. And this is important to us. And I don't know about you, but I didn't come out of Christianity to come and play around with life. I came to grab life, embrace life, and have it embrace me.
That's right. That's right.
And so it is very important that we understand that they adhere to it. Now, once again, we can look at things that were put up and things that were done, because many of those things were, acknowledged as idol worship and so forth and so on. But we've come to understand that Yahuwah had a relationship with his people. Are you following me?
Yeah.
And so it's important that we understand there are some things that are left without reasoning. And if there's no reasoning there, or if there is no explanation, then neither should we try to put one.
That's right.
We just take it unless Yahuwah speaks to us through Yahush, and then we are spoken to through the Ruach HaKodesh. Then it's important that we do not try to bring about an interpretation on our own. And it is so.
And it is so.
Once again, we're going to stop here at chapter 26, verse 6, and leave it there. But I encourage you to finish reading. Read it. Read all the way to chapter 28, because that's what we're going to be reading on to tomorrow, Yahuwah willing. And we want to come back and be ready to dive in some more. Every time I read it, I see something different. Something more is revealed to give us a fleshed out picture of what was taking place then, and how we can apply it to our lives now. Once again, it is very important that we find ourselves not being like tumbleweeds. And I know it's not popular. And the reason I know it's not popular is because you have a many people that have come by way of Yahuwah telling them and showing them. And then you have those that were ministered to by someone. But then when it gets past that, then you start seeing a lot of other stuff that don't line up. So that tells me that he gave us enough to get us in position. And now we got to trust him.
Right.
We got to trust him. And we got to trust the words of the season and the ones that he has ordained and he has called to be about his business in these last and final hours. Once again, not the time, neither has it ever been the time to be out by yourself. Very important for us to understand that. But once again, we are talking about the generations, Toldot. And so I pray that Yahuwah would allow you to meet us back at this place in the morning at 11:45. So that we can go through the Torah portions and we can enjoy what he desires to speak to us in our hearts, what he desires to reveal to us and to develop us so that we can grow and become the people that he desired our ancestors and forefathers to become. You know, we can become the people they were not. Are y'all hearing me?
Yes.
We can become that people they were not. And we can also become the people that they were. And I refuse to be the people they were. I want to be the people that he would desire for us to be. So once again, I pray Abba Yahuwah would baruch you with sweet rest, and that his shalom would be upon you as you prepare to rest for this Layla. I pray that he will minister to your hearts throughout the Layla. And I pray that your Shabbat will be greater than great, and that he would speak to you from the revelation of his writings, and that you will grow and you will fall even the more in a hob with him, and that your belief in him will grow stronger and stronger, and you won't quit, you won't give in. Once again, we are movie connoisseurs, and one of my favorite, come to be one of my favorite movies is Creed.
Yes.
And the reason I ahab it is because it's not just an ahab story, but it's about the determination of a young Ibra man or melanated brother who is determined not to walk. Now watch this, in the footsteps of his Abba, but he learned that there was no harm and there was no foul in being and walking in the footsteps of his Abba. And so you began to see many things. Now, I say that for this reason, because everybody can't walk in the footsteps of their Abbas because there are no footsteps to walk in. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
And so it's important that we understand. But he walked in his Abba's footsteps because he was great. You know, and so anybody seeing, we know it's a movie, it's just fictional, it's not real. But we can draw things off of the movie. One, he was determined not to lose. Two, he was determined not to lose. Three, he was determined not to lose. Four, he was determined not to lose. And five, he was determined not to lose. So he had made up in his mind that whatever it took, if no matter how he took the beating, he was going to continue to stay in that ring. And I pray that y'all have watched it because I don't want to give a spoiler. But anyway, it was great. I enjoyed it, and it's one I can watch again and again. The first one and the second one. But once again, may Abba Yahuwah baruch you and keep you in His perfect shalom until we meet again. I am Aliyah Yasharal, and I'm the leader of Messengers of Yahuwah's Kingdom of Great Belief Ministries, located in South Carolina. I want you to remember here at Messengers of Yahuwah's Kingdom of Great Belief Ministries, this is the place where
the Torah does the body excellent.
Until next time, may Abba Yahuwah baruch atah and keep you in His shalom until we meet again. Also, I want you to remember that you've been touched by Champion TV, a place where the champions reside, and it is so.
And it is so.